You're in the sweet spot, baby. You're in the sweet spot, girl. You're in the sweet spot, darling. It's a magical kingdom in a mixed up world. You're in the sweet spot, baby. You're in the sweet spot, girl. You're in the sweet spot, darling. It's a magical kingdom in a mixed up world. You're in the sweet spot, baby. You're in the sweet spot, girl. You're in the sweet spot, darling. It's a magical kingdom in a mixed up world. It's a magical kingdom in a mixed up world. It's a magical kingdom in a mixed up world.
Welcome to the Sweet Spot Podcast. My name is Lynn, your host, and Ken's my co-host. Ken, what's going on?
Well, Lynn, I'm here. I've got my old camp T-shirt, and it still fits, kinda. And I'm just looking forward to this episode.
Awesome. If you're wondering, who are these people? Ken and I are both former Disneyland Custodial cast members, and we have the #1 Disneyland podcast, hosted by two former Disneyland Custodial cast members.
#1.
This is episode 322.
Oh my gosh.
I know.
322. That's amazing. I don't believe it.
I don't either. We are also authors of the book series. There's 2 books out called Cleaning the Kingdom. 2 different books. And we have those on our website, signed and ready to be delivered by me. So if you want to get those, go to thesweetspot.com and you can get a package where you can get both for a deal that includes shipping, or you can get one or the other books available. You also get them on Kindle, on Amazon. The audio book for the first one is wherever you find audiobooks, and we're working on the second book right now.
It's a great gift, especially signed copies.
Yeah.
Delivered, as Lynn says, he'll deliver them, so
I will.
he'll come right up to your door.
Practically. And also we have a Patreon, and now is a good time to join if you're thinking about doing it, because we have some good ideas coming, some changes, some upgrades to the Patreon way we do things coming next year. And that's not too far off. That's like 2 months away, or less than, whoa.
Less.
Wow. Yeah. So it's like 6 weeks away. So you want to get involved now, because we're going to have a way where you can interact with us for special shows and current events and things, possibly. So we're just kind of going to redo it. So to join, you can give $7.49, which was our department number in Custodio at Disneyland. And that will get you the bonus episode once a month. And or you can give the $5, and that will give you the regular bonus episode without the Custodio tidbit that we add to the other one. But I also want to mention that if you not necessarily interested in a bonus episode, because either maybe you don't have time to listen to more content, which I get, but you just want to help a little bit, every little bit helps, and we totally appreciate it. So even if you want to give $1 a month, I mean, if everyone gave $1 a month, we could do so much more amazing things. So thank you. You can do that through Patreon also. If you want to give just a one-time thing, you can do that. We have a PayPal link on our website if you want to do that. So anyways, we have a new Patreon I wanted to mention. Not necessarily new, but someone that renewed their Patreon. And that is our friend Dallas Keat. And I know Dallas and his family. So want to welcome him back. And what a good time to start. So thank you for joining. And I want to talk a little bit about tonight. We're going to be welcoming back someone that we had on our show before, and it's Tim Delaney. He is a former Disneyland or Disney Imagineer, I'm sorry. And he had worked on so many projects, from Epcot to California Adventure to Paris, Hong Kong, Disneyland Hong Kong. So he's just a wealth of knowledge. He's worked on so many projects and things. And last time we talked to him, about his career, and we will also do that again, but in a different way. We're going to kind of relive some memories of his time going to Disneyland growing up. So it's a great interview. You don't want to miss this. I think you're really going to enjoy it. So before we get into that, we're going to have the current events. Now we're going to have the current events. Ken, do you have anything for us?
Oh, I got a few things, Lynn. Well, it's the Merriest Nights. They have started at Disneyland.
Yeah.
And Natalie Kipper over at MiceChat.com has First Look Disney Merriest Nights after-hours event at Disneyland. Disneyland held its first after-hours holiday event last night, which by that she means November 11th. Disney's Merriest Nights. Tickets are now sold out for all 6 nights. So if you don't have those tickets, you're out of luck. Either that or you can go to a scalper. A small number of dates compared to the Oogie Boogie Bash during Halloween. So this season was likely a test. Mm-hmm. It is a fest too, I guess, but it's a test to see how popular the event would be for more nights in the future. So in other words, pretty soon they're just going to sell out the entire holiday season for, it's going to be a private party. No, for those of you heading to one of the event nights or are simply curious to see what was available, here's a look at Disney Merriest Nights at Disneyland. So if you click through at our website, you can get the full story there. So go to the sweepspot.com. It'll be our current event show notes. Yes, Lynn.
Do you think or worried that they're going to, because I know at Disney World, don't they have a similar thing, but they do things that they don't have the parade, they only have it for the private events or something like that. Do you think that this is a test to eventually, because it seems like they've been trying to do everything Disney World's doing, although it's a different audience, but I think people would be really upset if the parade that's been running, since practically day one, first year of Christmas, not the same parade, but a parade, was only available for private events. I think that would start a riot.
Yeah, I don't think. We'll have to see. But if they could get away with selling 2 sets of tickets for one day,
mm-hmm.
They'll do that.
Right. I think this, they saw how popular like you had mentioned in the article, the Oogie Boogie Bash. So I think they're just trying to see, is there another way we could do private events to make more money, but by adding even more. Yeah.
Wait until they do Arbor Day. Disney's Woodiest Nights. I don't know.
Did you see any videos about it or anything?
Yeah, I mean it
looked okay.
It's Christmas time,
Yeah, it looks fine.
But there's something that wasn't being offered for the Merriest Nights that people expected. And as the Orange County Register reports, Disneyland's It's a Small World floods. Holiday opening delayed. Bertie McDonald reports that flooding that occurred during the process of refilling the flume on It's a Small World will delay the reopening of the classic boat ride as Disneyland prepares to kick off the winter holiday season and launch the new Merriest Nights After Hours event. It's a Small World experienced some flooding that affected machinery used to operate the attraction during the early morning hours on Wednesday, November 10th, while Disneyland was closed to the public. according to Disneyland officials. And later on in the story, they say that the holiday version of It's a Small World was supposed to reopen on Thursday, November 11th for the first Merriest Nights after-hours event and be ready for the kickoff of the holiday season at Disneyland on Friday, November 12th. No estimated reopening date has been announced for It's a Small World at Disneyland. The nightly lighting ceremony on the facade of It's a Small World that happens around dusk during the holiday season will still take place each night. In addition, the Small World facade will still be used for video projections during the Believe and Holiday Magic fireworks show. What do you think?
What a shame.
Yeah, it's very popular, and the attraction is what they call a people eater. So, that's thousands and thousands of riders an hour. They're not going to be shuffling through an attraction.
I think they're going to do everything they can to get it open, but I don't know if that'll be enough. We'll see.
Laughing Place covers that as well. So if you don't want to read it at the register, and they also covered it at Mice Chat, as they say over at micechat.com, in a story by Dusty Sage. The good news is the sets themselves were not damaged, but it's still too soon to know how long it'll take to fix the pumps and other electrical equipment. Wonder what happened. You typically use water in that attraction.
Human error.
So somebody has left the shower running,
Pretty much.
That's okay. Well, I know you've been waiting for it, Lynn. Disneyland adds Life Day celebration to Star Wars Galaxy's Edge. Yes, the fictional Star Wars holiday of Life Day will be celebrated along with other real-world winter holidays this season in the Black Spire Outpost Outer Rim Village of the Star Wars land at Anaheim, at the Anaheim theme park. Life Day is being celebrated in Star Wars Galaxy's Edge at Disneyland with menu items and in other ways beginning November 12th, according to Disneyland officials. And
when is it?
Life Day is the 17th.
17th, okay.
Yeah. What, you didn't know that?
No. I didn't know that.
My goodness. Okay. Galaxy's Edge did not celebrate Life Day in winter 2019 after the Star Wars land first opened at Disneyland and the park was closed in winter 2020 amid COVID-19 pandemic. I guess he meant to write amid the COVID-19 pandemic. But during the Life Day holiday season, Wookiees dressed in traditional red robes gather around a trimmed tree and exchange gifts with relatives. Huh.
Wasn't there a TV special or something like that?
It depends on who you ask.
Oh, really? I hadn't seen it. I just heard about it. But I heard it was not very good. But I don't know.
Well, yeah. So,
okay.
So Laughing Place has coverage of all the food and beverage offerings available for Life Day, and you can go check that out. Hey, if that's not enough Star Wars for you, there's free Downtown Disney VR experience expands Star Wars Galaxy's Edge universe.
Wow.
Free previews of the Star Wars Tales from the Galaxy's Edge virtual reality experience will be held November 21st to January 5th from noon to 8 p.m. daily at the former ESPN Zone in downtown Disney. The VR action adventure experience expands on the story of Black Spire Outpost and the world of the Star Wars planet of Batuu, the setting for the 14-acre Galaxy's Edge themed land. Players take on the role of a droid repair technician turned hero when space pirates attack their ship and they crash on Batuu. So, yeah, another thing. And as it says here, reservations may be required for the Tales from the Galaxy's Edge VR experience in downtown Disney, depending on availability. You'll either be issued a return time or be directed to an outdoor queue when you show up at the former ESPN zone. VR players must be 13 years or older and are required to wear a face covering while indoors due to COVID-19 health and safety precautions. So there you go.
What do you think about, so this is in the old ESPN zone building. Do you think that, and they're doing it for free right now, do you think this is a test to see if maybe they could sustain something that would be permanent in that location, like a VR thing?
Yeah, of course. They're not doing it just out of the goodness of their hearts.
Well, no. I thought I know what you're saying. But I was just thinking this is a good, everyone's asking, what are they going to do with that building, Disney's definitely going to find a way. It's just sitting there empty. They're going to find a way to make money with that. I still think that shop where the Rainforest Cafe is, it's a Star Wars shop now, but I still think that should be an Indiana Jones themed restaurant.
Yeah, maybe.
That's my opinion.
There is an official Disney Parks blog article on this story, so you can go through and check that out. And as they have all their disclaimers at the end of their story, so they reiterate you must be 13 years or older to experience. So maybe it's a little racy. No,
Wow.
Yeah. So Disneyland tests web slingers standby line without virtual queue, and this was the story from back on the 3rd of November, and they said Web Slingers, a Spider-Man adventure attraction, will test the standby queue starting on Thursday, November 4th, with the option to use the virtual queue whenever necessary, according to Disneyland officials. The twice-a-day distribution of virtual queue boarding group return times for the Web Slingers attraction at 7 a.m. and noon each day through the Disneyland mobile app will be paused during the test. And I guess it must have been successful because I think they did drop the... they just use the standby queue most of the time right now. Visitors hoping to ride Web Slingers will need to check the Disneyland app to see if the attraction is deploying a standby queue, virtual queue, or a hybrid model.
I think it's about time. I think it's time to get rid of these virtual queues. I don't know.
We shall see.
Especially Rise of Resistance, there's plenty of room in that area right there to have a queue. Even if it is a 2-hour line. I don't know. That's what I was talking to. I've been trying to help an ex coworker trying to go to Disneyland. He hasn't been in a few years. He doesn't know about reservations, boarding groups, all these things. And it's so confusing. Yeah. I'm trying to explain to him and then trying to explain everything. And then he says, "Oh, do I need an app?" I'm like, yeah. So very, very. It didn't realize how confusing it could be to someone that hasn't been in a little while.
Does it work with the Jitterbug phone? That's what I want to know.
Yeah, it's just really crazy. So I think, and then for someone to come and, I want to go on that new ride. Oh, you need a boarding group. What? What is that? So I think they need to have the standby as an option. It's just, but who knows? It's been going on for a while now, so.
Right. Disneyland employees wade into Pirates of the Caribbean waters to evacuate stranded riders. Now, this was a Brady McDonald story, but it's not just Brady McDonald. It's also Brian Rokos, and you'll hear why in just a second. As they write here, riders stuck on Pirates of the Caribbean, the Pirates of the Caribbean attraction, were evacuated by Disneyland employees wearing fisherman-style rubber waders who walked through murky waters and pushed stranded boats to land, so visitors could escape the swashbuckling cruise cut short. The Pirates of the Caribbean water ride at Disneyland broke down for approximately 90 minutes around 6 p.m. on Sunday, October 31st. Halloween. Is that a coincidence? According to riders who had to be evacuated. Now, this is not unheard of, but now with social media and everything, people know about it. So, right. Pirates of the Caribbean riders, including Southern California News Group reporter Brian Rokos, who was visiting the park as a guest, snapped photos of Disneyland employees walking through the waist-deep water, pushing the stranded boats while wearing fisherman waders. Pirates of the Caribbean boats located close to land were, quote unquote land, they say, were quickly evacuated. But riders stuck at quote unquote sea waited 90 minutes to be rescued. Disneyland Fire Department rescue personnel helped some riders off the stranded boats. Other boats were pushed to safety by waiting cast members, which is Disneyland parlance for employees, and still other boats were just left for dead. No, I added that part. Rescued riders were routed through a labyrinth of behind-the-scenes backstage hallways and a break room with arrow-shaped signs that read, "Return to Park." 5 fire vehicles and several firefighters were staged just outside the backstage exit to Pirates of the Caribbean. Evacuated riders were charged extra for their backstage tour. No, sorry, I misread that. Evacuated riders were rewarded with 2 front-of-the-line fast passes for any ride in the park except the Rise of the Resistance or the holiday version of Haunted Mansion or for Small World, which I added that part.
Oh, okay.
So yeah. So motorboat cruise. How about that? Can I get a front of the line pass for that? The horse-drawn streetcar.
Yeah.
Now you might think that's a crime, but they've decided to go ahead and publish a Disneyland police blotter. I don't know if this is going to be a regular feature, but Brady McDonald has a story, and it was published November 2nd, and it's for the month of September. So I guess they have to wait a month before they get it. But it says Anaheim police responded to more than 30 calls at Disneyland in September that resulted in some type of action taken by officers on cases including a bomb threat, assault and battery, and grand theft. Now, you may not want to hear this kind of thing. Maybe you don't want to know. This stuff is not unusual. It's been going on all along. You just didn't know about it.
Yeah.
And they explained, to put Disneyland's relatively low crime statistics into context, it's important to understand how many people visit Disneyland Anaheim theme parks on a daily, monthly, and annual basis. Disneyland and DCA welcome the equivalent of a small city's population, with 78,000 visiting the parks on a daily basis, according to the Themed Entertainment Association. That's nearly a quarter of Anaheim's population of 350,000, according to the U.S. Census Bureau. In a typical month, Disneyland and DCA attract nearly 2.4 million visitors, and that's just over half the size of the city of Los Angeles. In an average year, Disney's 2 Anaheim theme parks host 28.6 million visitors. So they're pointing out that this is not a lot of stuff, but they have a timeline that you can go through and read it. And like one that I found interesting, it's from Wednesday, September 8th at 10:14 p.m. Welfare check report taken. I mean, was it like, I don't think that cast member, I don't think that guest over there is looking too good. You want to go check on him? I mean, I don't know what kind of a call is that? Yeah, because normally when you hear a welfare check, it's like they're going to somebody's home.
Maybe so.
And there's another one from September 27th that says grand theft report taken. So did someone steal a car or that's
Autopia.
So someone stole an Autopia car. Yeah. Well, the grand theft, I was thinking about it, and the grand theft could have been, because grand theft, it has to be like what, $10,000 or more or whatever.
Oh, is that why it's called grand? Yeah.
Well, like I don't know. But my guess is someone stole like 5 churros.
Oh.
And as they point out here, that trespassing involves entering or remaining on a property without permission. So like if Disney's told you to, if Disney's banned you from the property, it's trespassing if you come back.
Yeah.
Disturbing the peace can include offensive language or getting in a fight, but that's just the cast members. Grand theft is more than Okay, see, I answered my own question right here. Grand theft is more than $950, and petty theft is less than that. Assault and battery involves the use of force or violence. Drunk in public can involve picking fights, passing out, or the inability to care for yourself due to intoxication. Police calls for lost or found property, patrol checks, illegal parking, and miscellaneous incidents were not included in this report. So,
Man, this place is going downhill.
As I said, this stuff has always gone on there, folks.
Yeah.
But I did want to point out something. Disney reported their quarterly fourth quarter earnings, and MiceChat.com covered that. It says right here, Caitlin Wisser covered it. It says Disneyland's Q4 earnings report precipitates stock tumble. The factors at play, and I wanted to call attention to this one part of the report here. Chapek pointed out that from 2019, the per capita spending at Walt Disney World, that is how much each guest is paying at the parks, has increased 30%. And according to Chapek and the Walt Disney Company's CFO Christine McCarthy, CFO is a chief financial officer. That number is only expected to grow. Does anyone else hear the sound of price increases and further service reductions? That was Caitlin's little aside there. Yeah. In fact, when asked about the impact of inflation on that per capita spending, McCarthy stated that they expected the percentage to grow. In order to do so, she did not rule out a couple of rather controversial changes. She indicated that the company might change suppliers to keep operating costs down. So, like, when you're going to order a burger, it's not, it's no longer beef, it's, some sort of mystery meat. And she also said that they are looking into creating smaller portion sizes. This second point came along with a quip about guests' waistlines, with McCarthy saying their guests might appreciate the smaller offerings.
Yeah, you think they will?
A dismaying comment.
Yeah.
Well, Caitlin added that little, she said it's a dismaying comment. And I tell you, when I heard about this, I put down my chocolate cake and the gallon of ice cream I was eating, and I said, how dare they? I mean, I almost couldn't finish my double Whopper.
They're smaller portion size. Yeah, I can see that.
I mean, in all seriousnness, those are what kind of called stealth increases. If you go to a fast food place, they sell you large, medium, or small sodas. If they don't list like how many ounces are in that, they can make the sizes any size they want.
Right.
So they can reduce the size of their cups, and you might notice, like, hey, this drink seems smaller. I mean, there was a Chinese food restaurant place that did that to me. I used to go to lunch at work. And they reduced the size of, how you order like a combination and they put it in one of those styrofoam clamshells, and it's got a space for the rice for the chow mein, and then the two spaces for the dish, whatever. Well, I could tell that the container was shrunken down, and I'm thinking just raise the price. But I understand a lot of people, when they see the price go up, they freak out. So this happens all the time. It happens at your supermarket too. Yeah. If you a can of coffee. They usually keep the height the same, but they'll make the circumference smaller.
Yeah, like ice cream.
They'll do. Well, ice
smaller.
cream, you just pump more air into it, into the mix, and so it seems, it still fills up the gallon, but you're actually getting less ice cream out of it.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So not that I would know anything about this sort of thing. All right, more business news. Disney is not subject to Anaheim's living wage ballot measure. Laughing Place reports that Disneyland, this is a court decision, Disneyland and its contractors will not be required to follow the guidelines of a 2018 ballot measure that would have increased workers' pay to at least $18 by 2022. A judge has ruled. So there you go. There, you can read the whole story there if you want to. MyChat.com reports that It has an updated story. Disneyland reaches agreement with unions. This is back from the 5th. Dusty Sage reports that for those of you following along with Disneyland's tense negotiations with various unions, it appears that things have finally been settled. Disneyland announced that they've reached a tentative agreement with the Master Services Council, which represents several unions, and then you can just go ahead and read the full story. Laughing Place also covered that. They said the tentative agreement has the full support of the unions that are part of the Master Services Council. Voting on the agreement will occur on November 17th, 2021. I mean, so this, it's interesting that this news broke after the court decision on the living wage. So, yeah. And my chat had several, Disneyland updates. They have Disneyland Updates, Spooky Time Ends and Christmas Moves In, and that was from Liliana Parker on November 1st. They also have Dateline Disneyland, Holidays Take Shape, Eternals Suit Up, Magic Keys Sputter, and that was from Andy Castro on November 8th. And they, as Laughing Place points out, Walt Disney World and Disneyland welcome back international travelers, and this is a November 8th story. As of today, it said, the United States has reopened its borders to travelers from around the world, and Walt Disney World and Disneyland are both ready to welcome back international guests. So, if you want to visit, and maybe you're a domestic guest, but you need to get a Disney getaway vacation planned out. So what you do is you contact our friends at concierge.com. That's concierrs.com. Go to concierge.com, check it out. They specialize in Disney. That's all they focus on. They keep up to date on all the changes, things like international guests coming back. Don't miss out. Don't leave all the fun to the foreigners. If you want to go to Walt Disney World, if you want to go to Disneyland, if you want to go on a Disney cruise or Disney Zilani in Hawaii or check out Adventures by Disney, whatever it is, go to concierge.com. And what you want to do, because this is not going to add any cost to your trip, the cost, they get paid through the companies that they book with. So it's not going to add any cost to you. It's just going to reduce the stress of planning. They keep up to date on everything. They know what's going on. So let them do it for you. You have nothing to lose by contacting them, at least to discuss a Disney getaway vacation. And do that. And when you book with them, book a package like, a hotel stay and theme park tickets together, or maybe a week-long cruise, something like that. You book a package with them and you tell them the Sweep Spot sent you, and maybe they'll surprise you with a nice little gift. I want to thank Concierge for being a sponsor and being our magical vacation planning partners.
That's right. Thanks a lot, Ken.
Hello everyone, this is Eric Johnson with Concierge and welcome to the D180. While Ken and Lynn cover all things Disneyland, in the D180 we take a spin around the rest of the Disney universe, and we do it in 180 seconds. Let's jump right in. We start our journey at Walt Disney World, where I swear I won't talk about the 50th anniversary. I mean, other than this mention. After this sentence right here, where I say that the 50th anniversary celebration continues all around Walt Disney World Resort, there's only going to be one more reference, I swear. The 50th lasts for 18 months, and that was the last sentence about it this week. Or is it? So anyway, we're at Walt Disney World. Over at Epcot, the International Festival of the Holidays is about to begin. Head to the festival park for live performances in Canada, France, Italy, and China. Some of our listeners might disagree with the order I just listed. If you don't know what I'm talking about, you need to get to Epcot right stat now. Talk to your doctor or concierge today if you have Epcot FOMO. Speaking of FOMO, if you have ever waited hours to get a good spot near the Candlelight Processional in Disneyland, you might be surprised to know that at Epcot this event happens over an entire month. Starting November 26th, through December 30th, the park employs a rotating cast of actors, singers, and even Disney princesses to narrate this Christmas story. The American Adventures resident choir, the Voices of Liberty, form a living Christmas tree on stage with a full orchestral accompaniment to complete this must-see holiday celebration. From sunny Orlando, we hop all the way down to one of the most remote locations on the planet. If you've ever wondered what lies past the end of the world, Adventures by Disney has you covered. One of Disney's newest globetrotting adventures is taking bookings now for departure on February 13th, 2023. Plan ahead and save $1,000 per person on your trip to Antarctica. The trip begins in Buenos Aires and takes you through lush forests and rugged mountains to the southernmost tip of South America. From there, you cruise south to the continent where few have ever traveled. View wildlife in glacial waters, where February is the best time to see whales around the ship. Take a couple of days to learn about the Antarctic climate and the efforts taken to keep the pristine continent clean and untouched. Once there, zip around in Zodiac boats, visiting penguin colonies and seeing glaciers up close. Take a kayak trip through the brisk waters of the seventh continent. It's 12 full days of adventure in one of the most beautiful and remote locations on Earth. If Antarctica is a little too remote for you, try one of the warmer adventures in the Bahamas with Disney Cruise Line. Disney is offering sales of 25 to 30% off right now for cruises around the Caribbean. Caribbean? This is a huge discount on trips starting November 19th through January 31st, 2022. If you need a winter warm-up, this is your chance. And that's... wait, I almost forgot. More about the 50th. Our friends at Celebration Press have an offer for you. They're printing out a second edition of their gorgeous book, 50 Years of Walt Disney World Magic. I have one of the first editions, and let me tell you, this book is packed with 208 pages of high-res pictures and delightful content about the Walt Disney World Resort. From its ambitious beginnings to the entertainment juggernaut of today, you will love this look at the most magical place on Earth. Head to celebrationspress.com and order your copy today. Thus ends our 50th anniversary celebration content for this week. And that's 180 seconds. I hope you enjoyed our quick spin around the rest of the Disney universe. If you'd like to learn more about these Disney adventures or just have a few questions, please come on over and visit the Facebook pages and websites of both the Sweep Spot and us, their official travel planners concierges. We look forward to planning something special for you and your family. I'm Eric Johnson, and this has been your D180.
Okay, so on this episode, we're going to welcome back a guest that we've had on the show before and someone that I've got to know over the time since then, and someone that we really enjoyed talking to, and that is former Imagineer Tim Delaney. Welcome, Tim.
Hey, it's great to be with you guys.
Yeah. So last time we talked a little bit about, well, we talked a lot about your career and how you got started with Disney and some of your projects. I don't think we talked about all of them, but this time we thought we'd talk about some of the memories you had at Disneyland, especially some of the early years.
Yeah, it's that was a very special time. No, it was really a special time. Yeah. And I don't know if I mentioned before, but I mean, prior to this, my big introduction to Disney, was a TV show, Disneyland television show that Walt put on every week. And, I won't go into it again, but I was just really impacted by, the Man in Space program, which when you saw the television show, it showed the segments that could potentially be shown, and then I was always intrigued by the Tomorrowland stuff. And it's funny because I was very young at the time, and it just carried me through. It carries me through to today, as a matter of fact. I mean, I did 3 Tomorrowlands for the Disney parks, and And, it just kind of stuck with me. And I was like, I don't know, 7 years old or 6 years old or something when that came out. And I was just so amazed by it. So the idea of the television show kind of segueing right into Disneyland was quite special. So I was fortunate enough to, I could say I was fortunate enough now to think about it. I was born in Glendale, California, the home of Imagineering, and at the time, I didn't think it was. I thought it was the end of the earth. Like nothing was going on here. But anyway, my family always took us to annual trips, and many years ago, I came across a series of photographs that were taken, I think it was in August of 1956. And it was a great adventure. It was like going to the park after Walt had talked about it on the TV show. And it was quite extraordinary. It was really, it was like, he chronicled the whole process of how the development was going and how it was, they found the property and where it was located and all that. But to actually walk into the park, especially my brother was 3 years older than me at the time, it was really quite an experience. We did everything we could to, lose our parents as fast as possible, and then we just went exploring the park. And it was interesting because I probably have better images of what Disneyland looked like, working at Imagineering. Looking back, and because to me it was like a whole lush, fabulous place, and it was pretty barren. I remember going into Frontierland. You kind of got all the activities going on with the shooting gallery and the Mark Twain coming in. But I do remember looking across and seeing welders building the frames for the Injun Joe's cave on Tom Sawyer's Island. And I was like, yeah, okay, this is how it gets all done, just kind of watching it really be built there. And they didn't hide it at all. They were just guys out there welding, it was amazing. And then you had so many kind of odd attractions there. You had the Indian Village, which is terrific, as a matter of fact. But, the burro ride and the stagecoach, and, it's just amazing, what Walt did. He just kind of I think he really embraced the concept of motion picture making and basically turning Disneyland, some of the areas into a real, basically like backlot movie scenes, that you could participate in. You were the actors, and that made it really special. It was like nothing anybody had ever seen before.
That's what I was going to say. It's now, we just take it for granted, but then there was nothing like it before that.
Yeah, and that's exactly right. I mean, it was like for a young kid like me, and let's see, it would have been 7 or 8. For me, it was like a fantasy come true because it was built around all these different, the Old West or the Southwest. When you think about those areas. And, the mine car ride and the old mine train ride before it became Big Thunder. It was just like a place that was like I'd never seen before. And it was like walking into the movies, Now, as it developed, as we all know, then it became more like it became a thing unto itself, meaning so many things you'll hear about. Everybody in this audience will hear this. So they'll see something in any part of the country, and it'll be kind of a themed old town or a village of some kind, and they go, "Hey, it looks just like Disneyland." So the world has realized that what was unique in the 50s has become the cliche representing everything that is kind of themed and taken care of, authenticity and research and it's become a cliche to itself, all into itself. And so yeah, it was fun. I mean, I wasn't a big Fantasyland guy at the time, I have to tell you, but I was a Tomorrowland and Adventureland, and for some reason I always loved the Jungle Cruise ride. I still do. I mean, I take It's just so awesome. But when you look back on it, it was just bare. I was marveling at it before. Just recently, my wife and my daughter and grandson, and we took the whole family down there, and I was just looking at the Jungle Cruise. Basically, it's fundamentally the same, but the trees are enormous. I mean, it looks like the real deal. It's like
it's an ecosystem.
It is.
Yeah, it's interesting to go back and compare some of the really earliest photos, and just the sparsity of the landscaping. The trees, haven't grown in, and just because when you're so used to it now, it's so different, And then you just go back to those old photos, and wow, going back to like Tomorrowland, how Tomorrowland was in those earliest years, compared to what it became later.
Yeah, and I'm going to make I'm going to give you a real confession on my part. My dream is to redo the Tomorrowland at Disneyland completely, and I would take it back to 1955. That Aero Saarinen building where the TWA rocket was, and the rocket to the moon. That whole attraction. First of all, I love that whole attraction going in, to that room that had the screens above and below, and you sat in the seats and all that. Yeah. And it was. And I just love that attraction. And years later, when I was in Imagineering, I came across one of the original sketches that John Hench had done of that ride. And what happened is you literally went into the rocket, and the rocket was, rather than the tall TWA rocket, was this kind of fat, chubby rocket of some kind that you literally went into the rocket. And that's where the show was. And I think they probably couldn't get enough capacity or whatever the normal kind of challenges they had there at that time. But I just love that idea. I love the idea that you actually went into the rocket. And the show was, it was a representation of its time. That's what I remember the most. I remember, as you launched and the whole room vibrated and the seats had that air cushion thing in it. And you're lifting off from Disneyland, from that spaceport there in the Tomorrowland area. And I don't know if it's Winston Hibler, or I don't remember who the commentator was, but he said something about as we lift through the smog-filled skies of Southern California, It's like, wow. There's a bit of magic, isn't there?
Yeah.
But I just remember that. It was so clear. But then I love the show. I love the show, the going to the moon and going on the backside of the moon and the rockets launched out, and you saw those mysterious foundations and structures, and the narrator says, was this a civilization of, of long ago? And it's on the dark side of the moon, so we never ever see that side of the moon. And that's where the storytelling and the design all came together. It was just I don't know, it was so kind of magical to me. Oh God, I'm sorry. Did I say that word? I don't like using that word. I mean,
I know what you're saying.
I don't like using it because it's used too liberally.
Yeah.
But the story design, and it wasn't just like I'll give you a perfect example of it. Mm-hmm. And I know I'll make a lot of people unhappy, but I don't really care.
That's fine.
I just remember the differences between the flight to the moon, and then years later when they did Mission to Mars, when they after in '69 when we actually landed on the moon, they said we can't go to the moon anymore. Now we have to go to Mars. And the show was just completely different. It was like going to the moon. We went to the moon, we flew there, we went around the backside of the moon. There was a bit of great mystery and kind of intrigue. It was kind of fun that way. And then you returned home and landed back, and it was great. Okay, it was great. Then years later, they did the flight to, this mission to Mars, which we, kind of did a hyperdrive whoopee-doo kind of thing. And we got to Mars, and Mars, it was a horrible storm, and then we had to come home. And so you walk out of that attraction going, well, what the heck did we go to Mars for? That was crummy. What was the magic in that? What was the story intrigue with that? So, it's funny, the subtleties of how the storytelling and how it integrates into the format was just, like I said, when I was that age, there was nothing like it. Yeah. Nothing I'd ever seen.
I mean, that could be a whole discussion. Is what should they do at Tomorrowland? But Yeah, I mean, you had started, you'd mentioned that you'd put that in there. But when,
Yeah, well,
yeah,
yeah, yeah. Well,
Tim gets paid for that sort of thing, Lynn.
no, I know.
He's not going to just give it away for free on a podcast.
I got frustrated a lot too because
Yeah.
when they redid the Tomorrowland, I redid. I put the same catapult launch in that I put in Paris, but it was this is when the rocket rods were gone, and so what I did is I redid a whole track thing where the Tomorrowland thing, especially in 1955, even then, they had a lot of animation going on. You had the rocket jets; they were on the ground at the time, but you had the Phantom boats and you had the Utopia, and they had those, radio controlled or wire controlled Thimbledrome kind of thing going in the middle of the land there and all that. But later, Tomorrowland was always the land on the move, with the people mover, the rocket jets and the monorail, the Utopias, submarine, after 67, of course, and the Skyway buckets and everything moved. So then when they lost a lot of that stuff, I did a layout when they were redoing Space Mountain, and it must have been because I was doing Hong Kong Disneyland at the same time. So they did the Space Mountain at Disneyland, and we did the Hong Kong, and I did the Hong Kong Tomorrowland at basically the same time. So that would have been 2005 or something like that. Anyway, so what I did is that I did a track layout that took the people mover or rocket rods, and again, if my timing's off, I wasn't around at that time because I had gone from DC to Hong Kong to back to Space Mountain and all that. But what I did is that I had the load unload on the upper level of the Starcade. I had done the Starcade in '77 or something like that, and I think that big mural is still up there that I did. But I did the load unload for Space Mountain in the second floor of the Starcade. The track went around the elevated rocket jets that were in the middle of the land, went over by where Pizza Planet is, and it catapulted and launched into Space Mountain. So the entire Space Mountain attraction was just the ride. So the loading and unloading was not in there because it takes up too much space. But didn't go anywhere. Nobody wanted to do it, and even if nobody wanted to do it because I don't know, maybe there was traditionalists who didn't want to do it. But I remember I gave all my drawings to someone to go to the studio, and even Eisner said, "Well, if we're changing the whole track, why don't we just change the whole thing and do something new?" But it's always kind of a weird conundrum between traditionalism and traditionalists and wanting to do something new. But my thing was we had lost so much animation in Tomorrowland that I just wanted to get a rocket kind of taking a tour of Tomorrowland, then launching into the mountain and then unloading off site where the upper level of this arcade, it's all immediately backstage access. So, but didn't go anywhere.
Wasn't that?
I still have the drawing somewhere.
Wasn't that kind of a John Hinch thing, like when he had the concept for Space Mountain way back? He had a lot of some of the attraction on the outside of the building.
Yeah.
I
will tell you, I'm glad you brought that up because I'll tell you that I have to say that I really love that design of Space Mountain. The kind of catenary structure to it. But I never ever understood, even though I liked the idea, I never understood how the rockets could come outside and then go back in again and still be in space. Because once you open the space, all the sunlight just comes into the mountain, and the whole magic of Space Mountain is just being in the dark, But the building I loved, and that's the reason why the original Discovery Mountain had that kind of same design to it. I thought it was. I thought John Hench's design was great.
Yeah.
It was really great. I love the design from a building point of view. It just didn't work from a show point of view.
Right. That makes sense.
So
well, yeah. Tomorrowland was. I mean, they also had a lot of attractions that were kind of sponsored exhibits, kind of too.
Yeah. Yeah. The sponsor, what you mean, like yeah. They had, the one I really loved that I always wanted to redo again was the fountain that was done by American Standard Toilets. And it was a whole series of like, basically valves, and you just turn the handles and it would shoot a water spout up. And then there would be like a cone on the water spout and would go higher. It was an interactive fountain. I like that. And my definite favorite was the walkthrough from the 20,000 League sets. From 20K. I don't know why, just because it seemed. I love the design of Harper Goff's submarine, and the fact that I ended up, building a full size interior and exterior in Paris was really kind of amazing. That was a real treat.
Oh,
I do have, yeah. It's one of Discoveryland.
That's a walkthrough attraction.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Cool.
It's right in front of Space Mountain over there, right in front of the cannon, and the submarine sits out there, and it's right next to a lighthouse, and you go in the circular staircase down through the lighthouse, and the whole idea is, and it's that whole thing of how you do transitions. So I did the circular staircase, and then you walked the length, and it was basically the interior was not in the sub, but it's in a mirrored layout. It's just reversed and backwards, right? So you go down, and then you walked all the way to the bow of the submarine, and then you walk through the submarine, then you come back out through the circular staircase of the lighthouse. But we built the entire. And assembled the entire thing, character painted, did everything in our facilities in Tahunga. It was 125 feet long. It was raised up about 5 feet. You had to walk into it, and they built each section had its own bulkhead, and it all had to be made in metal because of the fire codes in Europe. We built the entire thing, finished it out, dressed it completely, and then tore it all down and sent it to France and built it there in the building there. And it was pretty cool. It was pretty good. It was cool. It was kind of amazing. But so I love the exhibit. The original exhibit there. 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, and it was like they kept pushing that was originally the movie sets. From and I tell you this? Oh, did I tell you the story of Michael Douglas and Kirk Douglas and all that?
I don't think so. No.
So. When I was working on the Living Seas Pavilion, and I'll get back to Disneyland.
Yeah,
I don't want.
No, it's great.
When I was doing the Living Seas Pavilion, we got a call that that somebody they were going to bring somebody over to the Living Seas Pavilion, and we were under construction, but most of it was all finished. It was just a couple of weeks before we were opening, and they brought in Kirk Douglas, and Kirk was. I think he was shooting an American Express commercial over at the Japan Pavilion. Anyway, so they brought him over. And so I took him in the front door, and we had our kind of crew wanting to meet him, and he was such a lovely man. Anyway, so in the Living Seas Pavilion, the original Living Seas Pavilion, it was kind of a switchback queue. It was kind of a serpentine queue that went through ancient artifacts and submarines and technologies of undersea exploration. And the last segment before you came into the pre-show, there was a section there where we had a model, about an 11.5 foot long model of the 20,000 Leagues Nautilus submarine. And then right behind it, I had put in a poster of 20,000 Leagues. So when Kirk Douglas came around the corner and he saw this thing, he was like, "Oh my God, I love that movie, and boy, I wish I could get one of those posters." And I said, "I'll send you one." He goes, "Great." So I got his information. Anyway, so I got the poster and I shipped it off to him, and then I don't know, but it took a while. I was in France. I was in Florida and all that. So anyway, so then I get a letter back from him, and this really nice typed out letter. "Tim, thanks very much. I really appreciate, And I was like, "It was my pleasure. It was just, it's just great." So years later, I was working on Disneyland Paris. We were just finishing the second phase of development for Discoveryland. And in that, we had built the Nautilus, we built the Nautilus walkthrough, and then Space Mountain, Disneyland Paris' Space Mountain, or that was being built. It was mostly, a lot of it was under, almost nearly complete at the time. So I get this call like, hey, listen, the park was going to be closed because I was always working in the wintertime there, and the park was closed, and it was dark and all that stuff. So they said, Jeffrey Katzenberg's coming by. So I was like, oh, okay, great. So, and can you unlock the gate and let him in, walk, so he'll have some people with him. So Jeffrey Katzenberg comes walking up, and he has Michael Douglas with him. So I unlock the gate, and we walk in, and as soon as Michael Douglas sees the Nautilus, he goes, oh, wow. And he just kind of goes crazy seeing this thing. And he tells us a story about when his father was on the lot, that he would go over and he'd go through the sets, and this was like a memory, and he was so excited about it. So I said, well, Kurt, I have a story about your father. I told him this whole thing about going to Living Seas Pavilion, and I said, and your father, Kirk, was like a big hero of mine. He sent me this really, really nice letter. And Michael Douglas says, oh, that's what he does. He just really likes to send letters to people, and he's very sincere, and it was great. So he says, so Michael Douglas says, what you should do is you should invite him to the opening. And I said, great. So I wrote a letter to Kirk Douglas again, and I said, you may not remember me, because it was probably, that might have been almost, it was 10 years later. It was 10 years later. From the Living Seas Pavilion, which we opened in 85, and Space Mountain opened in June of 90, season 85, Space Mountain and the Nautilus opened in 95. So I said, you may not remember me, but I said, I sent you that calendar, I sent you that poster, and, I thought maybe, we're opening this 20,000 Leagues exhibit with a full-size Nautilus submarine. Would love to have you, And so he writes me this letter. Of course I remember you. This is fantastic. I had that poster, but he says my schedule wouldn't allow it, So for these last so many years, I kick myself constantly for not inviting him, just from his home in Beverly Hills to come out to our Tahunga facility to walk through the Nautilus. I mean, it would have been great. But I was so, it's so busy. You don't think about those, like, when you get old, like I am, and you go, why didn't you do that? Well, because I was so damn busy that I just couldn't, I was traveling back and forth. I was traveling back and forth between Los Angeles and Paris every 7 days. But
oh my gosh,
it was totally insane. But I'm going to go back to Disneyland again. I love the Autopia. The Autopia is great. I built 2 Autopias in my career. The ones in Disneyland are still kind of the best. The cars are always crummy, in my opinion. We did, but they're, it's that whole thing, like, you have to push the throttle down really hard because as soon as you let off, it breaks. But, it's tough for kids to drive, Yeah. And so I thought, well, we'll solve it by doing electric cars. In Hong Kong, we did electric cars, but they got too complex and the attraction ended up shutting down. But I loved it. It's a tried and true tradition, when you have a 6 or 7 year old boy or girl, and they get to drive their dad in the Autopia car. I mean, it's really, it's really one of those kind of, legacy kind of things and fun things to do. I don't remember ever going on the Phantom boats. They looked so weird. They look like Batman boats.
They do, yeah.
Yeah, they were strange. I guess, I don't know. I guess it wasn't till, I don't know, when the Matterhorn went in, I guess that's when the Sky Buckets went in.
Sky Buckets were like 50.
No, they went in first.
9? Was that 59 for that Matterhorn?
No, I'm pretty sure the Skyway got in there in 56, and then they ended up building, because it was there before the Matterhorn.
Oh, it was?
Which means they had to, I'm sure they had to shut down while they were building the Matterhorn, I'm sure. Yeah. And, yeah. And
it was genius running it right through. I mean, I love that. I love putting rides through rides. I mean, it's just. So yeah, I can't say much about Fantasyland. I was just not a Fantasyland guy.
Yeah.
I mean, Peter Pan was always just. I mean, Peter Pan was just great. It was great, but Carousel, and Toad's right there.
That's a personality test for people. It's like, okay, when you were a kid, were you a Fantasyland person or a Tomorrowland person?
Well, but Mr. Toad's ride. I remember when that ride took you to. Oh no! I know. I remember when I was a kid. I remember going on that Mr. Toad's Wild Ride, and you go down the tunnel, and the trains, the audio, and the lights of the train coming at you, scared the heck out of me. I mean, I was like, I kept saying, "Okay, this is fun. This is fun. This is fun. We're not going to die." And then you get around the corner. Loved the shooting galleries. There was a shooting gallery on Main Street too. Yeah, Adventureland, Frontierland. I mean, I keep going back to this. The whole amazing part of Walt himself, by doing those shows, like Davy Crockett, and establishing, a positioning of these lands, I thought was just brilliant. I was always surprised, to be honest with you. I'm still surprised, but I was really surprised even all through the years when I was working there, why we didn't do more with Zorro, because we have such a great, amazing kind of Hispanic audience that would have been just, like, why? I was disappointed when DreamWorks had done their version, but Disney, I mean, it was great. The TV show was terrific. It's kind of like the Mandalorian of the 50s. It's kind of like that, and Davy Crockett were so popular. But
there was the Mine Train too. Was that was?
Yeah. The Mine. Well, again, I mean, if Tony Baxter was here, he'd give you time and date for one of these things open. But I will say that the Rainbow Caverns thing, again, there's another one of those projects that I just wished I could do it again. I'd like to see it again. When you go through and they had those phosphorescent pools, and things would, it was kind of like a 60s, Haight-Ashbury kind of mine train or mine game thing. But going through Rainbow Caverns and all that fluorescent, bioluminescent or fluorescent, I guess it was, all the waterfalls coming down were just fantastic, And then, I mean, again, anytime you can take people on a journey, take them to a place where, you get on this train and suddenly you go through the Rainbow Caverns with the water coming through, there's all this fluorescent, it's all black light. And then you go out and you go into the desert area. I mean, like, I grew up in Glendale. I mean, it was like, it was like a 1930s movie set when I was growing up. Glendale was, and to go to places like that, it was amazing. And then the other one too is the other bit of amazing to me. The memories I have of that, were the Golden Horseshoe. Wally Bogue, and oh God, that was so. It was like classic vaudeville stuff. But you just walk in there and you can get a Coke and Fritos or whatever the sponsor was at that time. But oh God, I thought that when Wally Bogue gets hit and he spits the teeth out and the whole band is kind of sitting there. I mean, that is so classic. I'll tell you how amazing it is. My son, who's now in his 30s, but he was like about 10 or 12. I think he was watching some Disney television show, and he was like, "They've got this show down there, this Golden Horseshoe thing, and this guy comes out and he gets knocked in the mouth and he's spitting his teeth out, and they're hitting it with these ping pong paddles." And Wally Bogue, oh my God. And it's so classic, and he thought it was the funniest thing in the whole world, and I did too when I was a kid. It was just great stuff, really great stuff. I also liked the stores there. There was something kind of authentic about like going into the Pendleton store, and it kind of fit, the theming of Pendleton kind of fit in that kind of frontier land setting. I think they're, that's one of the things where the spirit of the park and the integrity of the theme and the merchandise all kind of hung together. It was all like they put the right thing in the right place. Now they just sell the same plush in every store. And
That's what I say, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that was.
You know what? Let me just say it, because I can say it and you probably can't. I don't know if you can, but it doesn't make any difference to me. But the other thing is, I remember on Main Street, it's so funny going through here. I'm just like, all these memories come up. Seeing the glass blower, guys who are like melting glass and making castles and making carriages and all that. Again, I had never seen any of that before, and I thought it was just, I thought that was amazing. It's like, again, that represented what Disneyland was all about. Kind of these really, even when it came to merchandise, it was unique experiences for the guests. It's what made the whole thing so amazingly successful. It was just so unique. So unique.
You just think of all the, you'd mentioned Wally Bogue, and just the quality of entertainment that, you could just see in a theme park is amazing. And not to mention the music and the musicians they always have there that are high quality, that you guys that, play on records probably or something that good.
Yeah, well, and that you're exactly right. The Carnation Plaza.
Yeah.
They had Duke Ellington playing there. They would have
Benny Goodman. Yeah.
Yeah, right. They had big name orchestras. They probably were on a circuit that went around and around. But there was, I don't know. I guess that's what made it so special. It was, you could see, however, it was organized. Even as a kid, you could see that it was organized to the point where everything that was there felt special. Big bands, or and I don't know when the guys started playing the honky tonk at Coke Corner, or even the Firehouse 5, with Ward Kimball's group, and it was really special. Those are my memories of it. I'm sure if I went back, sometimes when I look back at those early walk around Disney characters like Mickey, the characters are awful. They're really bad, but I don't remember them at all. I don't remember them. I don't remember them at all. I remember the place, and I think the place itself, just the place itself was really amazing. These photographs that I mentioned to you before of my family going there it was my older sister, my brother, my parents, and myself, my brother. So we have pictures of ourselves. Typical of my family. We had lunch out at the picnic area. My mother would make lunch. She wouldn't dare buy food. We didn't have the money to buy anything, So it's like she brought her own food. But it's kind of funny. I never thought, I ended up seeing those photographs. I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. We never did go out to eat. She always made food or something for all of us. But it didn't matter. It didn't make any difference. The other thing, and I'm doing this book right now about, a project that I'm working on, and I touch a little bit about Disney, and I actually comment a little bit about this whole thing of going to Disneyland when I was younger, especially with my brother and I. We would go exploring, and we'd ditch our parents really as fast as possible. And it was probably good for my parents too, because they were just like, go, and it was cool. It was really cool. But I have to say that our biggest challenge, and it was a challenge for years, was managing your ticket book. That to me was like, we always had A's and B's left because, I didn't want to go on the omnibus down Main Street for 10 cents. But, the D's and E's, man, God, we had to buy them again. And, I loved the Matterhorn when it opened. It was just really special about it, even though it was unfinished on the inside that people probably don't remember about. And the other thing that I think is really something that sometimes you have to really, in the context of today, to think about, is that Disneyland was closed on Mondays. And in the winter times, it was closed on Mondays and Tuesdays. And all that changed. It was closed for maintenance and painting and care and all that. But, in 85 or 86 when Michael Eisner and Frank Wells came. They went, "What do you mean Disneyland's closed? There's no way we're closing that." So that's where all the third shift work went on, you know. But I mean, it's just funny how something I find it, and I'm you know, I have good memories, but I'm not an expert on Disneyland stuff as much as maybe Tom Morris and you know and you know, Tony Baxter and people. But when you think about how Disneyland has become part of so many people's lives, and it started in 1955, and how it's gone through all of these years of not only the park itself changing and expanding and all that, but going through all those eras of culture, history, you know, the impact of the Vietnam War and all that. I mean, it's just always been there. It's always been developed. I mean, it's always been continued. You know, the big expansion in '59 and in '67. You know, after the World's Fair and all that. It's just always been there as kind of a comfort zone. You know, I mean, it's always been something for people to do and make memories for people. You know, it's kind of an interesting phenomenon. You know, when you look at it in that context. And
you think of, you know, I always think it's interesting how Disneyland opened in 1955. And it's kind of like, would there have been a better year for Disneyland to have opened? You know, it's like middle of the 50s, you know, but then it's like, well, did Disneyland cause some of that feeling? You know, I mean,
yeah, you know, it's an interesting thing that you bring up there, because it was kind of the whole spirit of, you know, that post World War II, 1950s, we can do anything kind of thing. And, you know, which was, you know, it became this is what I was mentioning. It's not only about people's lives and memories and culture and all that, but, it also represented a change in society, in a sense that post-World War II, once the war was over, people were just busting loose to like, we want to live our lives, and we want to live a modern life. We want to live with highways that go, you know, they built the Santa Ana Freeway at the same time, you know. I mean, it was built 2 years before, so that's why Walt had access to people going to Anaheim. But then, you know, when you put the Monsanto Home of the Future in, and all of these things, it was part of this culture of you know, not having to work all the time, more of a relaxed culture. You know, it was like, we're going to make appliances that make your life better. We're going to make cars that are going to be better. It was this whole, it kind of was a reflection of its time, and it was a time of, you know, being able to relax and feel safe with your family. You know, it's kind of an interesting, that's why I said it kind of tracks with history and culture and society, you know, and how many people it kind of affected, you know, people who the guests who visited and the people who work there, and, you know, the Steve Martins of the world, and all the other people who had some legacy and some history. You know, I mean, I'm sure you guys encounter this all the time, but, you know, you talk to anybody and everybody has some story or some history of, obviously being in California, their history of, you know, how did this happen? And you know, what are the memories you took away from this? And everybody remembers going to Disneyland and having family experiences. You know, I don't know of any other place, you know. I mean, I'd go to POP, you know, out in Santa Monica when I was a kid too, but wasn't the same. And I did, you know, a lot of research for all the, you know, whatever the 22 California seaside amusement parks for DCA when I did Pier. And, you know, all of those took place during the development of what Southern California was going to be about. From, you know, Abbott Kinney he came out here and started building Venice in 1905. And all those seaside amusement parks and piers, you know, just flourished. I mean, there were a lot of them, you know. And then then several things happened and they just got trashed. They got destroyed. The Depression killed them. The Depression killed it because they couldn't maintain these parks on the oceans. Then the parks deteriorated. Then World War II hit and they became almost nearly shut down. And then they, in the late 40s and 50s, a lot of them just caught on fire and burned because, they weren't taken care of. And they were seedy. The Pike in Long Beach was, the Navy shipyards there were just, I remember as a kid going through there. I was like, why are those girls, why are all those women standing there talking to those sailors and dressed scantily? I remember all that, But then Disney said, when he was going to do his thing and do his park, it was like, well, you're going to fail. It's just going to be seedy like all these amusement parks. And amusement parks. But then it wasn't that way. But he it's that old magic of creating environments that are just clean and beautiful and tell stories without words. It was a phenomenon, and it kind of had to happen right when it did. It's an interesting observation you make, but I just think it had to happen when it did. And now it's a bit challenging. Disneyland's a bit challenging. It's a victim of its own success, in my opinion.
Wow, very true.
I'm sorry to say, I really do. For years I was completely shocked about how expensive it was for a family of 4 or 5 to go, and it's tough. And then you spend a lot of your time standing in line. It's from Imagineer's point of view, you do everything you can to make it as great as possible. And there's some terrific attractions. The big attractions that from Splash and Indiana Jones and to me, Pirates is like the most evergreen attraction ever done. Every time we go, I go. Every time we all get on Pirates, and it's just, it's just so. I don't know what it's so different, and you never get tired of it. I never get tired of it. Never get tired of it. You go down and drop down the 2 drops, and you go down into the Phantom Mariner or the Ghost Mariner or whatever Mark Davis put in there, whatever it was called. And I was good friends with Exitencio, and he wrote all the songs for that. And, it was just amazing. It's just amazing. But it's just such a different eras kind of did different things, Well,
do you remember your first trip in through Pirates of the Caribbean? How old were you at that point? Were you really? All those. I think
66. I think
was it 66 or 67? And that was part of all that post. I went to the World's Fair in '64, so I saw a lot of the Disney stuff there. But that was just part of that. That New Orleans Square was all part of that whole thing, And I just thought Pirates. Even the first time we went, it was like something you'd never seen before. The extraordinary thing that I think, and again, I don't know how much people, the guests who go there, they see these attractions and I think that they love them and it's all very positive. But there are so many things going on, the whole transition, and a lot of these were happy accidents, but specifically how the storytelling manifests itself in the experience. The whole idea of going, you get on the boat and it's kind of crazy in the queue line. You get on the boat and as soon as you go by that, you go by the Blue Bayou, the whole setting becomes very quiet and very subdued, and you're going through the bayou. And then you do those 2 drop downs, and suddenly it's a transition. And the transitions are so amazing because the goal is to take you from the outside world into a completely different world. I did it, and it was in a cheesy way, but it was very effective. I did the Living Seas Pavilion. I put the hydrolators in, and the hydrolators were a fake elevator thing. And I remember going in the first time with the first audience, and I thought these people were going to roll their eyes and laugh and like, oh, this is stupid, but they don't. They just accept it. Like, okay, yeah. I don't think that the effect on some of these things isn't so dramatic that you're looking for something for a major big wow. Not everything has to be a big wow, but it has to be effective. It's like, okay, we just couldn't walk from the bright sunshine of Epcot Center, and we're like, okay, we're now in Seabase Alpha in the future, under the ocean. No, you can't do that. You have to like transition. And so the two drops down into the caves and the caverns and the ethereal kind of mysterious quality of what's going on there was just amazing. And it sets you up. The pacing is setting you up. And all of that is designed. All of that is looked at and analyzed and all that. And most times, I would say people like it and they really enjoy it. But to really create it is an enormous task to do. And when it's done right, it's done right. And when it's done wrong, it's terrible. And that's why a lot of attractions are pulled out, because they don't work. But Pirates is great. And I will tell you at the same time, just going through there and seeing all those animatronic figures. I remember the first time I went through and going underneath the boat where that guy, one of the pirates, he's sitting on the bridge and his foot is hanging down. And I looked at that foot and it was like, oh my God, that's like a real foot, but it was just like, they paid attention to it. Also, Walt, had the TV show and he was, I don't know if that was one where he was talking to Blaine Gibson or whoever did all the sculpting, all the, the heads. But he just talked about what Pirates is going to be. And I don't know. They had Mark Davis's sketches there, and Mark could tell a story in one sketch. And that's pretty magical kind of stuff, I think there are problems. I think the drops down into the caverns, like you suddenly go, we were just at Disneyland. Where are we? Where are these caverns? Where are they? And so that's really, really super effective. The only thing I don't think is effective is the ending, especially when it's crowded, the boats back up, So we did something, I don't know, Chris Tietz, who was doing Pirates for Paris, he started the other way around. You lift up, and then at the end you drop down. So it's a bigger splash at the end. But anyway, just the whole, the theatrical side of it, the theatrical side of what Pirates does still works today, and all the stuff about, we got to change because the society doesn't want auctioning off the redhead, it's like, fine, that's fine. I don't mean to discount that, but it's just like, it's a reflection of culture. I get it. I think making a change and because you have to do it and making it appropriate because it's a reflection of time is probably the right thing to do. But in reality, it doesn't have a big impact on the overall experience of going through Pirates. It's just kind of amazing. It's kind of an amazing thing to do. So I was also the kid that would always run over to the gate, like every year that Haunted Mansion and the gate was still locked,
Oh, yeah.
5 years. We're still collecting our ghosts. We've got 999 ghosts and we're still, So it's like, okay, maybe it's this year. Oh, no, it's not. In 5 years, the mansion was built on the Disneyland interior side. The gate was locked up. The signs were on it. It's like, hey, we're still out collecting ghosts, So, and that was really fantastic when it opened. That was the whole concept, one that I find really intriguing. The whole concept of taking principles of magic acts and not putting it into a magic act, but put it in the context of a ride, whether it's a Pepper's Ghost thing or any of the other kind of ethereal effects there. The stretching rooms. That's just brilliant stuff. Brilliant. It's just genius. And again, it's a transition from the outside Disneyland world into this world of the Haunted Mansion in a stretching room. Like, and you're a kid, you're like, oh, of course. Yeah, of course. Of course, that's what you do. Of course, that's what you do because we're at Disneyland, and Disneyland represented that.
Mm-hmm.
So,
you look at some of the even you mentioned about the transition. Think of, I was thinking of Rise of Resistance, but I was also thinking how Indiana Jones, how you slowly, you're going through the caves and everything, and how it transitions to where you get on the vehicles.
Yeah.
Very similar.
That, I mean, there is a benefit in a way, of having long queue lines.
Yeah.
I think the long queue line, I mean, but what they did is they couldn't have the ride take you all the way out there. So, I mean, the Pirates does that. I mean, they just had to get you underneath the railroad and put the box on the outside. And Mansion was the same way. It's exactly the same way. But, I think, that it's all the same problems that you have that you just solve. And I like all that stuff when they give you, here's the coding, here are the codes for secret messages and all that stuff. Something at the queue line to do, But yeah, no, it's great. It's great. Yeah, the Ride the Resistance ride is really, I find it really quite interesting. Certainly it's kind of an overwhelming thing, but it's I was a little concerned to see live characters in there, and I know it's a big thing, probably a big thing for some people. I don't follow the internet or what it says, but I just think, how long do you keep that ride going like that? It becomes very expensive to do that. That's the reason why Walt himself invented animatronic figures. He says, I can't have figures in these things. I just can't do it. But, I mean, it's a different time. It's a different time.
Yeah. For sure. Well,
I wish the Star Wars land was. I wish it was not in Disneyland. I guess that's maybe.
That's what we always say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a
bigger area.
It's kind of an amazing place. It's just the scale is kind of not the same, but I think it required a little bit. It required more, but I don't ever critique. Let me just. I want to make I never ever critique the creative work by any other Imagineers, because I was in those positions, and you might come up with 25 ideas, and the budget allows you to do 2. I mean, it's a very interesting process how you have to go through, and you have to manage so many things. So, where do you put your emphasis on the ride, and how much money do you put in for this, and how many activities do you have, and I'm sure Scott Drake and all the guys who I don't remember even all the guys who are working on it, but they have their own. I've been there. I've been there. I've built a lot of stuff for Disney, and you have to learn how to be smart enough to prioritize, and how do you put stuff in there that really, really works, and that what do you put in that you can only put in for opening day when you have a budget, and we'll come back later and add stuff. I mean, it's a very challenging design process. How are we doing in time? Am I running on too long?
No, it's great. I love hearing it all, but I don't want to keep you too much longer. I mean, appreciate your time.
Oh, no, it's no problem. It's no problem. I'm perfectly fine. And there's actually no problem at all. I'm trying to get some stuff done. I've been talking to Disney Publications recently, and there's some interesting things going on there. But anyway, Disneyland. Well, there is one last thing I will tell you. Well, here I am. I'm going to break my rule that I gave you before, but I'm going to tell you something that for me represented real magic of Disneyland when I was a kid. Okay, so you get there in the morning and you run around, and it's like you burn up all this energy, and they chose Anaheim because it was a bit cooler than Los Angeles. It wasn't in the valley and all that stuff, but it could get warm there and all that. But I remember so clearly, maybe the first 5 visits I was there, this whole experience where, as the day would move on and you come into the late afternoon and transition into the early evening, and the days, or the heat of the day would dissipate and the coolness of the evening would come on. And then all of the, the lighting on the park would come on, and the twinkle lights and the trees and all that. And I will say that that's where I use the word magical kind of experience. That's what I used to think of when I was a kid. To be a kid, when you're a kid and you're 7 or 8 years old, or you get in trouble in school, or whatever, you just have the normal kind of weirdness that little kids have. Where I would go for my mental peace of mind, I would just remember like going to Disneyland and seeing, the transition from the daytime to the late afternoon to the evening time to the lights, and then it's paid off with the fireworks. I mean, I would, when I had tough times, I would go there and I'd be like, okay, the world is safe. I'm okay. I'm okay.
Yeah.
So, it was so, it didn't, when you grow up in a little, when it wasn't a little town, but I mean, it was, when you grow up, it's like Disneyland was always, special in that way, in that they really made the place come alive. And I think that whole, it's the basic and fundamental principle behind what Disney does in the parks, which is, a really powerful placemaking and creating environments that essentially, as they say, they tell stories, but they tell stories without words. And the experiences themselves are the ones that are just like, stay with you, It was always special. I really, those early days were really good. I'm really happy that you guys brought this subject up. Now, I hadn't even thought about some of this stuff in a while, but it's fun. It's fun. Right. But every generation has its own moments there, and so I just kind of hope it. I hope it kind of, I last time I was at Disneyland, when I took my family there, we had to walk from the parking structures to the front gate, 3/4 of a mile. And that wasn't fun at all. And I talked to the ops people, and they, I talked to some ops people there, and they just said huge guest satisfaction, and that's unheard of. It's unheard of. It's, I mean, I don't know what's going on, but I just think there's a bond and a trust that people have of Disney, and you can never, ever violate that. And if you do, you're going to be in trouble.
Ooh, yeah.
Right.
So I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I mean, I didn't.
No.
Like, that's it. I don't want to end it on a negative side, but yeah, it's I can go through a million things, Tinkerbell flying or the fireworks or whatever happens to be. It's always all those amazing things. Link.
Well, there's no doubt that those early years had a big influence on your the career that you chose, for sure.
Yeah. Well, I feel very fortunate that I lived here. I had my parents who would, there were a couple of things, and I'll just tell you briefly. I mean, going to Disneyland was kind of a great thing because it was relatively close. It was relatively close. My parents also, when there was a big epic motion picture release, they'd always take us to Hollywood to see it, whether it was Ben-Hur or 10 Commandments. I remember going to the Egyptian theater and seeing Ben-Hur, and going outside and seeing Masala's Greek chariot on display with those Greek hubs on it. And, it's just like living in Southern California, you have those opportunities. That was just amazing to see. It's like, and also, I enjoy drawing. So they didn't mind when I did these enormous chalk drawings on my bedroom wall, rocket ships, cars bursting, just a big, giant drawing. I mean, they'd be like 8 foot tall drawings. It was just like, wow. My brother and I shared. He didn't care one way or the other, but I was the only one in my family who could draw and created stuff, and that's what I did. So it was, it was always kind of fun fun to do that. And they, they never complained about it. They was like, yeah, okay, sure, go ahead. It's just chalk, wash it off. Well, I said, great, wash it off, and I'll do another one, So, so they let me do that. So, it wasn't really, we didn't really have too much, but we did a lot of stuff. And so going to Disneyland once a year, that was about the best it was, and it really made it very special. And those are great memories. And the fact I could never have imagined that I would spend 34 years not only designing and building attractions, but I feel very, very lucky that when I started in 1976, I worked, all the grand old men were there. Mark Davis was still there. Yeah. Clyde Coates was there. My office was 10 feet away from Herbie Ryman. The fact that I worked with Ward Kimball on the World of Motion Pavilion for Epcot Center, and he was the producer for the Man in Space thing. And I would sit and talk with him, or, they brought in a lot of Hollywood art directors, and a good example is I worked with Walter Tyler, who is the art director for Cecil B. DeMille. And when he came into work, I sat in his office and I said, I love that scene in Ten Commandments where Moses is lifting that giant obelisk. And I said, how did they do that? And so we actually, if I told you the whole story, they took us all the company shipped all of these high-end art directors. They were going to take them all, but they were going to work on Epcot Center. And I got thrown into the group of them. We flew on Walt's airplane, the Mouse, down to Orlando. I think we flew all the way there, and then we had to stop a couple of times coming back for fuel. But I sat and talked to these guys, and Walter Tyler, I said, how did they do that effect? And he was like, spent 3 hours telling me how to do that. So I do feel very, very, very lucky to be able to say I work with those guys, Blaine Gibson and Yale Gracie, and walking through Imagineering and seeing all these special effects, and going into the sculpting room with Blaine Gibson and seeing hundreds of presidents and pirates' heads all over the place. And it was a really simple time, but it was really quite effective. And I learned a lot. I learned a lot from Herbie Ryman, and so I feel very, very fortunate. And the fact that I loved Disneyland so much at that time, and these were the guys who really, really entertained people. But at that time, in those days, like in the 70s, nobody knew who they were. It wasn't until later. It wasn't until later that people knew who Mark Davis was, and Ex Atencio and Walt Paragoy and Sam McKim and Herbie and Hench and all those guys were just brilliant artists, brilliant guys, but fun, fun guys to work with. And I feel very fortunate to be able to work with them.
Wow. All right. Well, Tim, thank you so much. It's always fun to talk to you. We'll definitely have to have you back.
And Tim, would you tell our listeners what you're up to or where they can find you?
Yeah, I'm a little obscure right now. I just went back and got into LinkedIn. The reason, there's a long, complicated story. I got hacked in my LinkedIn account, so I had to shut it down for a while. But I for the last 12 years or 11 years, I've had my own business, and I've done a lot of work. I've done a lot of work in Asia. And interesting, if you really want to know, I don't do a lot of theme park work anymore. I did, but I will tell you, and this is one of the campaigns that I'm kind of on right now, is that I work for a lot of sports teams. I redid the stadium at the University of Notre Dame. I worked for the Los Angeles Clippers on their new arena. I worked for casinos in Macau. I did a big project in Badaling, right outside of Beijing, where the Great Wall, where the wall is. The Great Wall is. And we're redoing did a Ming fortress there and all that. And I did over 10 years, I did 90 projects or something like that. And I will tell you, the people who call me now are people who basically have any and all businesses. And this is a message that I do kind of make all the time, and I really think it's really important. And the message happens to be that, for all of the people who want to work in Imagineering, and if you can get a job there and create Disney theme parks, I'm very happy for you. And I think it's great. It'd be a great experience. It's kind of it's very competitive, and it's tough to get into, and you have to have the talent to do it. But The rest of the world wants what you learn in the theme park business, which is understanding authenticity, understanding how narrative architecture works. Every company, every corporation wants experiences for their guests. They want experiences so that you'll go on Instagram and talk about their product and all of the attributes that you learn in creating everything about a theme park, a Disney theme park. As I said, authenticity, research, safety, design, cohesiveness. When you design a theme park, when you design like a Disney theme park, you're basically building a moderate-sized city, a city of 75,000 people, where the population changes every day. You have to make sure they're fed, taken care of, be entertained. They have to be safe. They have to be all of these things. And the world wants experiences. So I challenge people, like, understand and appreciate what you can learn about what Disney parks is all about. And, not everybody does the same story things or the IP things, but the experiences of making people feel safe. I get calls for shopping centers. I get calls for hospitals, libraries, you name it. People like, help us. We need that. We want a bit of that, Disney secret sauce. And so I do that. And then I have a very large project that I'm working on for myself. And I'm not ready to disclose what it is yet. I've been working on it.
That's fine.
But basically what I've done is that I've taken all the principles of design that I learned and created and developed in my, in all the years, in the 34 years that I was there. And I'm applying it to the real world. The principles of design, just the things I just mentioned, principles of design. But I'm not trying to design something for like Harry Potter or design anything for like a Star Wars world or anything like that, or anything fantasy. I'm applying those principles of good, solid design to a real world situation. And maybe next time we talk, I'll tell you more about it, because I've been doing a lot of work on it, and I'm trying to build interest in it. I would love to have my work exhibited. I've done hundreds of drawings that show what I'm trying to do here. But and I don't ever talk about it, but because I'm coming to the end of it, I'm beginning to talk a little bit more about it. But I will talk about it as I get it more solidified. But and I don't know what will come of it. I don't know. But I just think it's something that I really want to do, and I think it's something that I think will help the world. How about that? That's
great. Well, thanks again, Tim. Appreciate it. I know the listeners will really enjoy this conversation.
Well, great.
Okay, well, that concludes episode 322 of the Sweet Spot podcast. But don't leave. We have some important things to talk about. So, Ken, you were a guest on another podcast.
Yeah, our Ralph, who's been on our show, he was kind enough to welcome me onto his show, and it's actually video too. I mean, if you really actually want to be scared and see me, he goes under the name Casino Skunk. So if you do a search on that, you'll find his stuff. But I was on a recent podcast. We talked about some stuff that we just didn't think the tone was right to do it on the Sweep Spot, and he has his own show, so I went on there and did it there.
Yeah, that was fine. Yeah, Ralph's a great guy. So
yeah, he's one of our listeners. So.
Yeah. Cool. Well, yeah, check that out. Ken will put a link in the show notes to find that. Also, we have those T-shirts we talked about. We had to have them altered a little bit, but they're back. They're back on sale. Awesome design. Check them out. We have some great designs on there on TeePublic. The link's on our website too, if you can't remember that, but it's TeePublic, and search the Sweep Spot. Also, we need some reviews. It helps people find us. We haven't had one in a while. So if you've been listening to this show for more than a couple episodes and you enjoy it, please leave a good review. We'd appreciate it. It will help us and help other people find us. So And we will read the review on the show during this time. So go ahead and do that. But thank you so much for listening. I really hope you enjoyed that conversation with Tim, because I know that we did tremendously. So
it was good to have him back on, and spread the word and tell people how they can find the podcast so that they can enjoy things like that too.
For sure. All right. Well, we'll talk with you next time. Thanks for listening.